say this to those of you who, in fact, cannot see an overlay. And wonder whether we get it. Just bring up the old text while I'm sitting here, twiddling the proverbial thumbs. Just in case.
Okay. I think.
Okay.
There we go.
All
there
right.
we go.
Hello, everyone. Hello, my friend. Trending is back. With Josh Beatty, too, by the way.
Woo!
After his bout of illness.
You don't want to know. You don't want to know.
I think everyone wants a graphic description of what was going on in your bathroom
do not.
this time last week.
They do not want to know of the porcelain throne upon which I sat for.
So you say that, and then you voluntarily contributed more information. So
Yeah, it's the radio game we play, right?
That's a good point. It's a double blind. Welcome along. Welcome. This is the pre-show for Trending. We're going to be starting with our radio listeners in tow in about 4 minutes or so. In the meantime, here we are just sitting back and relax. I feel like I've had too much caffeine today. Like I genuinely feel a little bit like...
A little jittery?
Little just... Ugh.
That's only going to make for a greater show.
Maybe. I don't know if I'm going to just burn out at some point, though. And
Okay.
then, will the energy just kind of drop?
But you got me to keep you energized.
I do have you. It does actually help a lot. Let's have a quick skim once again.
Welcome, by the way, if you've joined the stream for the very first time, you've maybe seen it pop up on YouTube or Facebook as a Rima listener, somebody who is interested in what's going on here. This is Trending, happens every Wednesday at midday, going back through the week that was and looking at the trending news stories. So these are stories that Kiwis were searching for more information about, just like you yourself potentially. This is what informs these stories we talk about here on the show.
Always fascinating. Always fascinating to be confronted with who you really are versus who you'd like to be. So there's quite the range. It actually, to be honest, it touches quite a broad range of humanity.
It really...
This time around.
Most trending does. But this time in particular.
And I'd say this one too, fairly unique for the fact that it's almost all informed solely by the Google searches.
That's a good point. We didn't do any...
No.
Looking at other news sources this time.
No, we stayed entirely within New Zealand and entirely informed by the Google searches. So that's interesting. It's amazing, though, how much I am starting to predict what type of stories I'm going to get from other news services. For example, if I want a story on US news, go to The Guardian.
Yep, or the BBC.
Well, yeah. Nobody loves US news more. Well, besides, of course, CNN and Fox, but like outside of the American stables, man, the Poms love it. Lap it up. If I want a human interest story in New Zealand, stuff.co.nz.
Yes, yep.
Every time.
Yep.
Every time a coconut. Then let me think what else. One News kind of bounces around a little bit. It can be very...
human interest.
Human interesty, but then occasionally it'll get a little more substantial.
Yeah. RNZ, that's much more... How do you quantify that one?
That's a good point, actually. RNZ's actually not bad.
No.
On a face level, but you do have to apply a little bit of a anti-socialism filter just to... But that's fine. It's all part of the fun, isn't it? There's a service that you can subscribe to. I think it's called Ground News. I see it pop up in some different stuff that I follow around the world. I haven't tried it before. But apparently it attempts to label news stories as to whether they've been covered more on left or right-wing news outlets.
Interesting.
So I don't know if they'd ever tried to do that here, whether or not that would fly or otherwise. But interesting idea. And how would you... We should maybe do a poll at some point. And just say, okay, this news service in New Zealand, left, right, or centre, and see what people reckon. Because I think it's also very tempting to just say, oh, it's all left-wing, blah, 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 blah. I feel like because our audience is more socially conservative, so that's anecdotal.
Yes.
But I feel like we'd be more prone to do that. Whereas if maybe you are like a university student, you think everyone's like a far-right venture capitalist.
Yeah, you do. We all sort of move through not everybody. Look, we're not lumping you all in, but let's be honest, there is, if we...
You go through a teenage communist phase is what you're trying to say.
there's a stream that we
And
seem
I'm
to all
just a
move through.
teenage communist baby. All right, show's about to start. Here we go.
Live on air and online. Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And a special shout out to all the former teenage communists joining us this afternoon. If that doesn't make any sense to you, you need to be a part of the pre-show. Welcome. Haere mai. We are about to dive into the news stories from over the last week. That is what the show is all about, a news and current affairs show with a difference. Every story that you're about to hear today has been informed by the Google search behavior of other New Zealanders. I wonder how much it's going to line up with the things you've been searching for. Is it going to be a bit of a shock to the system? Is it going to be one of those embarrassing mirrors shown up to reveal the flaws and imperfections in your own soul? Or maybe a little mix of both? Probably the latter, but we'll discover that together. And thankfully, I shan't be doing it alone. Joining us, once again, my right-hand man and the man who makes it all possible behind the scenes, Josh Beatty.
Good
Welcome
to be back.
Round of
Thank
applause.
you.
Round of applause.
Sorry to have missed last week. Again, you didn't want me probably in studio last week, but we won't go into details there. I'd also say you heard Andrew speak of the pre-show. If you're wondering, well, how do I be a part of the pre-show? A quick reminder that this Trending is streamed, the only show here at Rima at the moment that is live streamed, so you can be a part of the experience visually on your lunch break by heading to rima.co.nz. We would love for you to be a part of it. Also, make sure to comment below if you're watching the stream, or of course, flick us a text 8168 keyword Rima.
Yes. So to watch the stream, by the way, once you've gone to Rima, you can click through to either the Facebook or YouTube links, and then that'll give you the live stream so you can see us resplendent in matchy but not identical outfits today.
Yeah, and you are looking very dapper today, may I say, good
thank
friend.
you.
Like, chef's kiss.
I just thought sometimes you want to make an effort,
Yep.
and in the radio world, far too easy just to schlep it.
Yeah, well, not when there's a live stream.
Well, that's right. So here we are, dressed up, sharp as a tack, and ready to go. Let's find out what news stories were capturing your interest this week.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Scraping in at number 24, that's often about as low as we like to go on any given week. We're going to start with something that perplexes us. I imagine this story managed to find its place based on expats living in New Zealand, because surely, Josh, there are not that many New Zealanders searching for Eurovision 2025.
Well, there was enough to make it 24 trending, which, I mean, there are a lot of things that people go to Google searching for. I would say, though, there will be those listening and viewing right now. Don't forget, rima.co.nz if you want to join the stream, who do believe not only are we scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of the trending search results, but maybe the stories that are featuring on the show.
It's not up to me.
Nope.
It's up to you.
Nope.
So maybe get more interesting friends. If you don't want this kind of a story, polling in at number 24, as we say, scraping in. But jokes aside, I have watched a Eurovision Song Quest before.
Right.
Partly because my sister-in-law is part English or part Scottish English. So all to say, has a European connection, maybe grew up with an affection for Eurovision. It is bizarre. Maybe the best way to describe it.
It is special. It's like, it's
Special.
unique.
Special is that in the way that maybe parents or relatives describe the artwork of small children.
Well, so here's the thing, right? The UK, once again, I'm going to talk about this first, received no votes from the audience. So they, 2 years in a row, because this is based on votes by not only audience viewership, but also some judges, I believe.
Yeah.
And the thing is, so I went back and I watched the UK performance, and it was all right.
Yeah.
But it was just very normal. It was just very like, I would see there were three women singing. They looked like a normal pop group I would have seen anywhere at any concert or any festival. I think that's maybe why.
You've got to lean into the ridiculous.
Oh, and when it comes to Eurovision, let's be honest, it is ridiculous. And they live and breathe that every time it rocks around.
You know what it reminds me of? And I'm sure you can back me up here, having been involved in, say, kids' ministries before and children's programs.
Oh, yes, okay.
If you're trying to be cool at the kids' program, you look like a dork.
Oh,
Like the only way to get out of a kids program in one piece is to just embrace the lunacy.
100%.
Maximum, and then you look fine. But if you're trying to stand there and look cool, you actually look worse.
Oh, if you care too much about how you're going to appear to adults, you're never going to win over children.
Exactly. So with that in mind, do you want to take a look at the winning song first or the awkward moment for the UK?
Look, that's up to you. Let's go for the winning moment first, which, again, if you're just listening, you're not going to get the full
experience.
Exactly of this. But this was Austria that came in first.
And it's a song called Wasted Love. Incidentally, there's no way we're playing all of this. Okay.
Look, only by watching the stream, shall I say, and thank you to those who are joining us, are you going to see the full gambit of emotions that went across Andrew's face as he experienced that being the winner of Eurovision for 2025. You went on a journey, my friend.
And none of it was good. I enjoyed none of that
There
journey.
was a little bit of surprise.
The operatic kind of turn, that was what I was waiting for. When it started off with that very dour kind of thing, I was actually thinking at the very beginning, I am making out maybe 1 in every 20 words they're saying. Very hard to follow.
That was sung in English, by the way.
Technically. But then we get to, I knew it was supposed to build up to something. It couldn't be that whole way, the whole way through. And I was like, okay. So that was, if I was to give it a, how many, out of 10, I suppose it's a lazy 6. But that was enough to win, so.
Get in touch on the rating. What was it for you? 8168 with the keyword life, or of course leave a comment below in the stream.
Should we play it again or never play that again?
I think we know where you and I both land. But look, hey, what do you reckon? Did you actually enjoy it? Maybe we are just uncultured swines? 8168 keyword Rema.
We are the servants of the people. We are but your humble broadcasters, here to bring you the news of the world. And because we all love a bit of Schadenfreude, nothing like talking about the English with German words, why don't we take a look at the moment when the UK got 0 points from the public for their performance.
This is it.
Continue with the United Kingdom.
Oh, come on.
From the public,
How did the public vote?
you get 0 points.
Oh, no. Second year in a row for the United Kingdom with 0 points from the public. But a great reaction here in the hall.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. I mean, he didn't have to say for the second year in a row. That could have been just an insider's.
Yeah. Well, that was, what's his name?
Graham Norton.
Yes. And you could tell he particularly, he's like, come on.
Well, because he's Irish.
Yeah.
So, he's not sad about the English getting no points.
No. Well, this is UK, though, so.
Oh, good point. Oh, it's UK, not just England.
No, yeah, so they're all lumped together. So he was probably still slightly disappointed.
The only other thing, too, to talk about here was Israel's participation, which has been a point of contention for a number of years in a row now.
Yes, and led to some ugly protests and some rather unfortunate incidents, to be honest, Andrew.
Yeah, from what I can see too, there was a man and a woman who tried to get over the barrier onto the stage. They were stopped. One of the two agitators threw paint, I imagine red paint. The man and the woman were taken out of the venue and handed over to the police. There was also pro-Palestinian demonstrators clashing briefly with riot police.
There was also, I believe, from other countries, accusations of favoritism and rigging of the votes for Israel to actually land so highly in terms of the rankings.
Interesting. I mean, at the risk of detracting from maybe what the wider lesson is to learn from all of this, you must have really suffered as the UK to get less votes than Israel at a competition like this. Do you want to say anything more on that?
No, I'm good.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Slow march up the ranks then for now, but we're going to gather pace as we go along. Joe Biden coming in at number 3. Do you remember he was once the president of the United States?
He was indeed once the president of the United States. So just quickly before we talk more on this subject, though, Felicity is watching via the stream.
Hey,
Hi,
Felicity.
She says, and she seems to agree with us, that was awful. Never play that again. Can't believe it won.
Right. Right? I don't know, man. It's its own thing. I think maybe you have to be deep enough in Eurovision to understand what makes a Eurovision song as opposed to maybe a pop song in general.
Yes.
Because the two are not the same.
Yes, well, and also, again, thank you for watching, Felicity. If you're also watching and you have any thoughts on this or other stories we're about to talk about, feel free to leave a comment below. Or, of course, if you're listening, text on through 8168, keyword REMA.
Back to Joe Biden, though, and news that he has been diagnosed with cancer and advanced prostate cancer at that. My goodness, has this story run the gamut of reporting over the last few days?
It's been covered in a multitude of ways from a multitude of angles, shall we say.
Well, why don't we take our lead first from the BBC and see where we go from there. So first up, a former White House physician, this is courtesy of the BBC, talking about Biden's cancer treatment options.
Do you have a sense of what kind of health care would be available to a former president?
Sure. Like every American past the age of 65, he is eligible for Medicare. And he also, lives in Delaware. They have state-of-the-art medical facilities in Delaware and also between Delaware and D.C. Proximate areas. He's also eligible, like every American, for his physician to work with the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda. They have some of the leading clinical scientists, and one of their specialties is urologic cancer.
I'm learning nothing from this, so he can stop.
Well, what I would say, the reason I thought this was interesting / very not interesting is basically what he says is, well, what is available to him is available to just every American. So actually there was no distinguishing between because you are a former president, you have special treatment for cancer treatment, but that he is like every other. No, there's a lot of.
I'm biting my tongue.
Really?
I'm wanting to.
This just seems what he was saying to me. Am
I
wrong?
This is why I appreciate you, because it means we can hit the same story from two different angles.
Okay.
You cannot pretend to me for 2 seconds that Joe Biden is on Medicare.
Right. Well,
what
right.
a load of rubbish.
Right.
There is no way on God's green earth that poor little Joe is reliant on Medicare. This guy, especially after a lifetime in politics, has a sizable nest egg stashed away from all the campaign contributions that never got around to being spent. He will have access to the finest, the best doctors from around the world and probably be able to pay cash for it. Or he has health insurance that would dwarf the GDP of certain third world countries. This is not somebody like us.
Well, no, and that's not what I'm saying, but that is seemingly the narrative that story is going with is, no, he's not anything special just because he's a former president, he doesn't get special treatment. No, it's just like everybody else. Here is the treatment available, yada, yada, yada.
And yada, yada, yada is exactly right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the spin never stops with this guy, does it? I don't know, man. After the presidency was finally wrapped up and we finally were able to acknowledge that this man is not all there and has been struggling with all sorts of health issues, should probably never have been forced to continue the presidency in the first instance, but that's a whole other conversation to have. Many people also starting to ask questions after this diagnosis, being such an advanced diagnosis too, because according to the press release, the cancer has already metastasized into his bones. So that's pretty advanced. And it was only 6 months ago that we were given a clean bill of health. So did he really have a clean bill of health? This is the question. And of course, where Biden is concerned, fertile grounds for conspiracy theory, and no better man to sick onto this particular story than Vice President J.D. Vance. So let's see what he had to say about it.
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, of course, we wish the best for the former president's health.
No, he doesn't.
And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Like, I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people. And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff. And this is the guy who carries around the nuclear football for the world's largest nuclear arsenal. This is not child's play, and we can pray for good health, but also recognize that if you're not in good enough health to do the job, you shouldn't be doing the job.
Great time to have that conversation. Good old JD, man.
Okay, Andrew, I've got a question for you. I've got a question for those listening and watching right now. If you want to watch the stream, head to rema.co.nz. Follow the links for YouTube or Facebook. Okay, here is a headline I found on this story. JD Vance is being called out for his shockingly unchristian message about Biden's cancer diagnosis.
Ooh.
What news source was bringing this story?
Oh, the shockingly unchristian one?
Yes.
Oh, Al Jazeera.
No.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't think in a million years you're going to guess this. And I will give it this. I'll give you this clue.
Fox News.
No. News publication.
It's not The Onion, is it?
Nope.
Okay, that's my 3 strikes.
BuzzFeed.
BuzzFeed?
BuzzFeed had this story that was then covered by a lot of other news outlets, but they were the leader of this story. JD Vance has been called out for his shockingly unchristian message about Biden's cancer diagnosis.
So BuzzFeed are terribly concerned about the portrayal of Christianity in public life in America.
Maybe, I don't know, but I was shocked to find that when I dug deeper, the first publication, again, I don't know if you can call it even a news publication.
Sure.
Maybe that was misleading. It's their story.
That is fascinating. Well played. That's like bonus points for producing.
Thank you.
On that front.
Thank
because
you.
I'll tell you why I would have really struggled to pick that up as well. I didn't even think BuzzFeed was still around. I'm pretty sure they had a massive round of layoffs a little while ago.
Oh, they were, because I don't know even what they are. They were a YouTube channel and that kind of died. But yeah, they exist in some capacity,
they were like
some way.
They were like I'd say news in the broadest sense, because there was a lot of like quizzes. You remember all the BuzzFeed quizzes about everything?
Oh.
Let's find out if you're secretly a spy or something.
What type of chocolate bar are you?
There you go. And so they had that and other news adjacent related things. So I guess in some ways, glad to see people still have jobs. So that's nice. Broader topic of conversation, and this was actually discussed on the Rima Breakfast Show a couple of days ago, was the cultural shift in the way that Christianity is being discussed in the US, and partly informed by, say, some major podcasts in the United States starting to discuss Christianity in a more positive light.
Yeah, interestingly, I think part of that may be due to the appointing of a new pope.
Right.
And looking back at Pope Francis and looking forward at Pope Leo. But yeah, American Christianity and Christianity are always interesting conversations.
Sure.
It is weird to see, again, BuzzFeed leading with this apparently shocking unchristian.
Yeah.
Because also, to point out, Donald Trump, he tweeted about Joe Biden's diagnosis, and it was shockingly un-Trumpian, as again said by, I'm just quoting right now, BuzzFeed.
Yep.
Again, sounds weird to even come out of my mouth. But he said, Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. We extend our warmest and best wishes to Jill and the family, and we wish Joe a fast and successful recovery. That on True Social, that's all he said.
Mate, to love Donald Trump is to love changeable weather, isn't it? Just... What are you going to get? You don't know. He doesn't know. And so incredibly magnanimous one moment, maybe not so much the next.
But I am, and maybe we can get some weigh in on this. It's a bit of a heavier topic from those listening and watching right now. By the way, don't forget the stream up at rema.co.nz. Follow the social links. Shockingly unchristian. What does that mean? And why was it shockingly unchristian?
Maybe a little bit too cold and matter of fact. I mean, you heard Vance say, or Vance, kind of feels weird to say. Feels weird to say Vance, doesn't it? JD Vance, different guy entirely. JD Vance say, I don't know if there's a right time for it, but he goes for it anyway. Classic JD, right? Like I know him. Classic JD. That could have waited to the second time you talked about it. So maybe this is the thing, the idea of compassion and care being more important than scoring political points, which, by the way, we might have to revisit a little bit later in the show because there's some other discussions that we've had in New Zealand that I've reflected on that, well, there may well be some parallels for. Would love to know your thoughts on this, though. I mean, what is the Christian response to this? Does that sound like an obvious question, or?
Yeah, I mean, but is it maybe just because it feels obvious, it doesn't mean that it's not important to talk about?
8168 with the first word, Rima, or maybe jump into the chat.
Yeah, leave a comment below. These are the trending stories from the week that was. This is Trending. It is also streamed if you're listening right now and want to be a part of the viewing experience, rima.co.nz.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And now for the contractually obligated NBA segment. I say this as though I don't want to talk about it. I actually kind of do, but at number 21 in our search terms over the last week, Timberwolves versus Warriors, and there is still going to be a month or so more of this sort of coverage because the NBA Finals are underway right now. So this is the second round, Josh?
Second round did wrap up, yes. So Timberwolves versus the Warriors was the second round, moving into the conference finals before the finals.
So what should we know about this then? Timberwolves versus Warriors in particular.
Well, what we should know, Andrew, is that you have just basically taken two knives during the show and stabbed them either side of my heart because...
Well, so long as I missed.
Well, I'm a Warriors fan.
Yep.
And I'm also a Blues fan. We're talking about both sporting teams during this edition of Trending. And both times, the teams that I support are on the wrong side of winning. Let's start with this one.
Maybe you're a bad luck sign. Maybe you're
no,
an albatross.
Come on. He
who Josh supports finishes last.
Surely our Christian values would say that we can't propagate such slander. So look, the Warriors lost. They lost to the Timberwolves. There is a lot of people here in New Zealand who obviously, showing by the Google Trends, care about the NBA. Particularly, the story here is that Steph Curry, the superstar for the Warriors, was injured in the first game. They play first to four, sorry. And he was unable to play for the rest of those games. Therefore, basically, the Warriors were dead in the water.
Yep. So we have some comments from Draymond Green, who is, what would you call him, the enforcer, maybe?
Well, look, he is a controversial figure. If you don't know about NBA, which is totally fine, he's often got himself into trouble on and off the court. He enjoys being the bad guy. That's the role he plays purposely within the team.
He'd actually do well in the WWE.
Yeah,
don't you think? He'd be the heel, just the guy who revs up the crowd and gets them all hating him, and he doesn't care. Well, let's see what he had to say then post the defeat of the Warriors.
Raymond, you said that you were going to follow Steph and Jimmy to a championship. Looking at the postseason landscape right now, if Steph had been healthy, do you still think that you guys could have done that?
I wholeheartedly believe Steph was healthy. We could have done that. But I once won a championship where Kyrie Irving got hurt in the NBA Finals and Kevin Love got hurt in the NBA Finals. Do I think we still would have won if they didn't get hurt? I do believe so, but we'll never know. That's just the nature of the sport that we play. Injuries are a part of it, and they're unfortunate. So you can't take the good and be like, oh, man, we won a championship, and it don't matter that somebody was hurt. On the flip side, can't sit here and be like, we would have won had Steph not got hurt. No, you've been on the other side of that. So respect it when it don't go your way. You know, one thing I hate is front runner. You know, man, oh man, we won our championships because we were that good, which we were. But Kyrie Irving got hurt. Kevin Love got hurt. Robert Williams got hurt.
Wow. 3 people got hurt.
Well, it's a surprisingly measured response from Draymond, and actually a very respectful one, as he talks about, so the team he's been on, the Warriors, for a long time have been very good.
Yes.
They've won 4 previous championships, him, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson. And to recognize that injury is a part of the game and not just sit up there and be like, no, well, if our guy was healthy, we would have taken the whole thing, to kind of recognize that injury is a part of the game. It was just really interesting and quite, again, a measured response. And where also the NBA has been rather hostile in the playoffs recently. There's been a lot of interesting physicality.
Argy-bargy.
Argy-bargy.
Which is what they call it in the US, by the way. Big fans of argy-bargy.
Knocking elbows. But it was, I actually quite respect that moment. Even, dare I say it, a bit of a, not that I think Draymond Green has a faith. I know Steph Curry does, quite a deep one, but a Christian response even. It's like, look, that was the nature of the game, and we didn't come out on top.
Maybe JD Vance needs to learn a lesson from Draymond Green.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Speaking of JD Vance, before you jump into the next story, Andrew, we got another comment once again on that last story about Joe Biden. He put down Biden, "Are medical records no longer privileged? ? What we tell others is our prerogative, even when in public office. Biden was a way better president, than Trump."
Wow. Well, yeah. The question, I suppose, starts to be whether or not your medical state affects your fitness for the job, which I think is a reasonable question when it's something like the presidency. If I was to make a distinction between the issue that was raised and the way that it was raised, if you want to express concern, and maybe the next time you talk about it, you can raise those issues of, well, health cover-ups and so on, because this is part of the wider discussion. As a side note to this, Jake Tapper, who is a prominent CNN anchor, has released a book about the cover-up of Joe Biden's health issues. And it's been pointed out to him by other former news hosts like Megyn Kelly, who was a leading light on Fox News, and went over to another show where she got fired. That's a whole other conversation. But she pointed out via a video clip that, well, he was actually part of the news media that shot down allegations that Biden's health wasn't up to scratch. So, in other words, Tapper was part of the organizations that hushed down those kind of conversations and wrote a book about it afterwards to say, wow, it looks like the news media really kind of covered this up. Fascinating double standard.
And here's how I know about it.
With Andrew Curtis.
When we got to our meeting, we said this. Yeah. And I am ashamed of those people who went along with my idea completely. Let's go to number 20. And, I mean, we kind of have to talk about this, I suppose. Hide your kids, hide your wife. We're talking Diddy. Well, in this case, we're talking Cassie Ventura, who was the former partner of Diddy, who is on trial right now for being an unpleasant human being.
Yes, so this was the number 20 news story over the week that was, once again, informed by the Google search results, hence why we're talking about it. Dare I say, sticky situation, Andrew?
That's some of your best work.
Let's
see how the New Zealand Herald tried to dance around the topics being discussed at the Diddy trial. I mean, I will say, look, if you've got really young kids around you right now, maybe you don't want to listen to this story.
Quite genuinely, yeah.
Come back in a couple of minutes if you like, but it is a story that is gaining a lot of attention. Turns out people in Hollywood might be degenerates. Who'd have thought?
The sex trafficking trial of hip-hop tycoon Sean Combs is underway in Manhattan, New York. Better known as Diddy, Combs faces some heavy charges, including racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The 55-year-old pleaded not guilty to all charges, but if convicted, he could be jailed for life. So, what is being alleged exactly, and did he do it?
You're fired.
Prosecutors allege that Combs ran a criminal enterprise through his business empire, involved in sex trafficking, kidnapping, arson, bribery, enticement to engage in prostitution, and obstruction of justice, all dating back to 2004. The prosecution's case will focus on mainly evidence from two key witnesses, a woman referred to as Jane and Diddy's ex-girlfriend, R&B singer Cassandra Ventura. Ventura's tearful testimony described in graphic detail being forced into drug-fueled sex performances called freak-offs. She said he abused, sexually assaulted and trafficked her throughout their 10 years together. While Combs' defence attorneys acknowledge domestic violence in his past, they have denied everything else since he was arrested in September last year.
He's not guilty. He's innocent of these charges.
They also argued that any group sex was consensual, describing it as part of a swingers lifestyle. The trial is expected to last at least 8 weeks, and with 2 enormous legal teams, there's certainly more to be revealed with this one.
So that is the story. And again, more to be covered on this one as time goes along. But Cassandra Ventura, the woman described there in the clip, has provided some details about what their life was like together. Oh, my Lord. I feel like this is one of those stories that people... It's like when you drive past a car accident. You don't want to look at it, but at the same time, there's something compelling about...
Rubbernecking.
Yeah, that's basically what the story is.
Yeah. I think as well, the reason Cassie Ventura is in the trending search results is because we are getting a lot of publicity on this story, as it is so... When it's connected to Hollywood and it's connected to celebrity, it gets a lot of press. And then a lot of people are wondering who she is. Obviously is a star in her own right, but less well known. And so people are going, sorry, who is this? Google more information, leading her to being trending over the week that was.
We've even got some people joining us out in the hallway today. Look at that. We've got a live studio audience. How exciting.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Maybe we should invite them in. Do you reckon? Would that freak them out?
It probably would.
Yeah, probably would. Never mind. It's amazing. You might have the most boisterous child in the world, but if you put a microphone in front of them, unprepared, they will clam up in a second. Let that be a parenting tip for all of you from somebody who doesn't have children. So then instead, let's move to number 19. Brooke Van Velden. Now, she came in hot, shall we say, at Parliament over the last week. And we actually touched on this in last week's show, discussions around the use of the C word.
Yeah. Hey, if you've just come back after the previous story because you went, okay, I do have young children around and I might kind of check out and then check back in. Maybe you want to do that again. That is up to you. That really is up to you.
Look, we're not going to explain what that particular word is,
No,
Josh.
we're not. No, we're not. No.
Don't Google it on your work computer for a start. But this, we've talked before, Josh, about Rorschach tests in the news.
Yes.
This is one of the if I could just order it out of a catalogue. This is the best example I have seen in so long. Absolutely breathtaking.
Once again, if you could just really quickly, Andrew, I can see, by the way, we've got quite a few people watching on the streams. Awesome to see. Feel free to leave a comment. But maybe for those who haven't been a part of trending before, what is a Rorschach test?
Thank you. Yes, a Rorschach test, otherwise known as the ink blot test. So it's, I wouldn't say a deeply analytical psychological tool, but it was more where somebody was given an ink blot and then you were asked to describe, what do you see here? The obvious inference being that, well, it doesn't objectively show anything. It is a subjective viewing of the material, your own thoughts, beliefs, values, whatever, projected onto this image to then come up with a message that you can share with somebody else. Many of our news stories, I think, fit this descriptor because the reactions that you hear from people are fantastic representations of their views and their beliefs based on, in this case, where you might sit on the political spectrum. If you are more, say, centre-right leaning, you are inclined to side with, say, Brooke Van Velden or maybe our wider national government, because, again, Nicola Willis was also at the centre of all this. That's what kind of kicked off this discussion. However, if you are more, perhaps, left-leaning, cynical of, say, ACT, which are quite the polarising party on the right, if you're more left-leaning, then you might be inclined to say, well, this was a cynical ACT on her side. Let's see how stuff.co.nz covered it when Brooke Van Velden used some rather strong language in Parliament.
Or not to see? That was the question for Parliament when Workplace Relations Minister Brooke Van Velden chose to use the C word in full today during a fiery debate in the House. She took umbrage at a column by Andrea Vance in the Sunday Star Times. In it, Vance used the expletive to describe senior women ministers who backed the pay equity law change. Lloyd Burr reports.
It was an extraordinary moment in parliamentary history.
To girl bosses, hype squads, references to girl math and c***s.
The C-bomb being dropped by Workplace Relations Minister Brooke Van Velden. So how did it get to this? It starts here with an opinion piece by Sunday Star Times National Affairs editor Andrea Vance, who blasted the government's repeal and replacement of pay equity laws. She called senior female ministers, among other things, the C word. Along came Labour's Jan Tinetti, who quoted that article during today's question time.
Does she agree with Andrea Vance, who said about the Equal Pay Amendment Bill, quote, "It is a curious feminist moment, isn't it? 6 girl bosses: Willis, her hype squad, Judith Collins, Erica Stanford, Louise Upston, Nicola Grigg and Brooke Van Velden, all united in a historic act of economic backhanding other women.
But before Van Velden could answer it, a chorus of MPs tried getting the question thrown out.
That member is asking a question containing material derived from an article designed to bring my colleagues into disrepute.
This question refers to girl bosses and hype squads. How can that be consistent with 192(5) about discreditable references to any member of Parliament?
Questions must be concise and not contain discreditable references to the House or any member of the Parliament or any offensive or unparliamentary expression.
But Speaker Jerry Brownlee dismissed the concerns.
Well, how would a democracy work if there can be never any questions in the House about what people outside the House have to say? What people are reading in their newspapers, etc., etc. Why would you want to deny the Minister the opportunity to refute that?
So the question was allowed, but the drama didn't stop there.
Mr. Speaker, it was hard to find a single sentence in Andrea Vance's article I agree with.
That would be enough of an answer. Another supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
No, there's no point of order on this. You've answered the question. It's a controversial question. I'm keeping order in the House. The member would be advised to take my advice, resume his seat and take the next supplementary.
Which kicked off another round of objections.
Mr. Speaker, point of order. I was not given the opportunity to answer the second part of that question, so I did not answer the primary question.
With respect, I ruled that you did answer enough of it. Point of order. This better be something that's really useful.
I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, we've got a minister here who has been attacked by a very questionable question. And I think the best thing that can happen right now, instead of everyone else interrupting, she'd be given a full opportunity to respond the way she wants to.
Well, thank you for your view. I don't agree with you.
The steam was continuing to build.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a strong woman and I can speak for myself.
Absolutely.
That's good. And you only get to do that. You only get to do that when you're called to do it.
Which she eventually was, and Van Velden let rip.
I disagree with the comments made, and particularly the note of the use of the term backhanded, which refers to Andrea Vance's article, which was quoted from this weekend. And I do not agree with the clearly gendered and patronising language that Andrea Vance used to reduce senior cabinet ministers to girl bosses, hype squads, references to girl math and The women of this government are hard-working, dedicated and strong.
That's right.
No woman in this parliament, nor in this country, should be subjected to sex-based discrimination.
Winston Peters was seen with his head in his hands, and when he left the chamber...
I've seen some bad times in this House, but this is one of the lowest I've ever seen. When you go to that sort of standard language, nothing is beneath you after that, is it?
Others were praising her.
I'd like to congratulate Brooke Van Velden for showing immense courage in calling out what has been a very sorry episode.
We were fairly surprised by the use of it in a newspaper column, so, I think most New Zealanders find it pretty offensive.
So that was the coverage, and it continues, of course, on stuff.co.nz. I found that compelling viewing, though. In terms of the coverage, praise we are due to stuff.co.nz for, I think, providing a really detailed and thorough, timeline, I suppose, of events leading up to the moment, shall we say, when such unprecedented language was used in Parliament.
Yeah, well, you can see why it is also trending in terms of the stories from the week that was. Trending last week as well, this story given a highlight on the show because, again, this is about the stories that we as Kiwis are looking for more information about and still people wanting to understand the full gambit, and Stuff doing quite a good job there of telling us from beginning to end, and even it hasn't ended yet, what unfolded, Andrew.
And because, I'm very backward in coming forward, let me just say this. Brooke Van Velden is right. The end. The language that was used in that article, if it was used in opposite political terms, and this is why I say it's a Rorschach test, you heard from Van Velden there. Whether or not she was right to quote directly from it, you can argue the point if you would like. But to take issue with it and to say, if you were describing members of the Labour Party or Greens, or even if you think back to Jacinda Ardern, even the level of ire that was generated by people referring to her as Cindy because it was disrespectful, surely reducing MPs to girl bosses and hype squads, and then, of course, using a C word as well, you would think if there was any shred of integrity with people, they would say, okay, both of these are over the line. I found it particularly revealing to see Jack Tame's interview with Chloe Swarbrick on Q&A. He took a moment to say, by the way, let's address this because in the past, Chloe, you've been very vocal about the use of sexist and derogatory language towards women. Chloe said that it was cynical of Van Velden to bring it up and said, oh, well, if you want me to call it out, I'll call it out, which, of course, she never really did. And just disgraceful. I don't see how you cannot take issue with this irrespective of your political colours, and you are welcome to share your thoughts. As always, that's what the show is about, but I thought it fair for at least me to be forward about what I thought regarding this issue. You cannot have a world where one party can engage in sexist and derogatory language and then clutch their pearls when it is addressed or and somehow take umbrage. I mean, the best part was Swarbrick said that Van Velden was playing the victim card. I thought, my goodness me, how many times has that been used from the other side of the aisle? These people are not serious people. The moral of this story, by the way, in case you think this is a right is better than left story, politicians wonder why we have no respect for them anymore. It's because of this kind of nonsense. We know you're about as principled as a back alley drug dealer. You'll chase the money or chase the opinion polls. You don't really care. You care about what your support base thinks. So I have no doubt there'll be points in the near future, and it's pointed out quite fairly, by the way, that Nicola Willis herself is guilty of calling Jantonetti a stupid B-word herself only a little while ago. They're all doing it. They all do it, and then they clutch their pearls and say, oh my gosh, look at the behavior of these other people. They are downstream of culture, and we are the ones that have enabled it to get to this point. And this is the issue that I really wanted to raise today.
I like it, Andrew. I also have a question for you, and looking at how much we've got left, I don't know how... Well, look, we'll drop stories if we need to drop stories, because
absolutely.
This is a great conversation to have. I wonder, from a Christian perspective, when we're confronted with language like that, which typically, of course, from a Christian culture perspective, we are anti.
Sure.
Do we get blinded by the language and then not see past what is actually happening because we're so offended by the misuse of derogatory language?
Sure.
You know, absolutely, we never would say that that is a good thing, but that moment just blinds us to all else that is going on.
Now you're really tempting me to go all in on this.
Okay. Well, look, hey, it's your show.
If you are so upset by language that you cannot navigate the wider point on this, you need to make a wider circle of friends. This is the world we live in today, and if you are looking to reach the world around us, certain people in the world speak like that. And if that particular use of language is enough to make you lose all perspective, you are quite within your rights to object to it, but there is definitely a broader issue at play here. And so I guess to put a bow around my thoughts on this particular topic, and the reason why I bring it back to our role as the Christian community in New Zealand, we have heard about this breakdown of decorum when it comes to our politics in this country. It's been interesting to hear, and Andrew Urquhart himself could back you up on this one. We've had contributors say that this is one of the few places in New Zealand where you can still have a robust discussion without it devolving into name-calling and so on. Why? Well, my sense is that our belief that every individual has the right to their own values, their own perspectives, is grounded in Christendom whether you like it or not. If you erode that, you start to bound people's right to speak in other things, such as maybe having the right political affiliations, the right social views based on whatever the tides of culture might look like. You cannot do that. One of the most incredible achievements of Christian culture has been the ability to preserve the right for people who you disagree with to share the things that they want to say, and acknowledging that they have the individual worth to speak it no matter who they are and what their background is. If we are not finding that in culture these days, that is because we have let these foundations erode in our own lives and in those close to us. So maybe we need to take a look at the influence that we are having on the world before we complain about politics, because it's always been a cesspool.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
Was that too blunt, or maybe a little bit more?
I think that was great. I think also, if you're watching or listening right now, and you agree or disagree or have any thoughts to add, you are welcome as part of this discussion. Kind of exactly what you were saying just there, Andrew. That is the point of trending and having it as a live streaming experience, is so you can contribute yourself to this conversation. We will, regardless of what you share, for or against, have a look at and mention what you've mentioned. 8168 with the keyword Rima, that is the text, or of course leave a comment below if you're watching the stream.
And so from bullying in the press to bullying in the workplace, and the number 8 news story in the country, did you partake in Pink Shirt Day this year?
I accidentally wore a pink shirt the day before Pink Shirt Day. And just because I have a pink shirt and I think I look not too bad in it.
Oh, don't undersell yourself. You can say you look good, mate.
I'll look
you look
good
good.
in it.
Don't walk it back. Don't let the haters bring you down.
Well, that's the point of the story, isn't it?
Yeah, touche. So Pink Shirt Day, of course, brought in to combat bullying, inspired by a real event of somebody wearing a pink shirt to school and all manner of kerfuffle. Let's take a look at a video that was produced. Conflict on the front line, trying to bring attention to what's going on with the Wellington City Council. And this video posted on thepost.co.nz.
Since the COVID lockdown, I moved back in with my parents, my small family, plus mum, dad and my brother.
I prefer to sign up with my real name because I like to have that human interaction. Yeah, this one is very much a real person.
I went out to dinner with my wife and my daughter, and I just got some stranger just instantly calls me out. Oh, you're that parking officer, eh?
A guy messaged us. He was very, very angry about something, and we couldn't really get to the bottom of what the message was saying because it was so full of swear words.
This guy's just not dropping it, constantly coming at me. It got to the point where my wife even stepped in, killed the whole vibe for the night.
We tried to help him, and then he said, why don't I come and find you at the council? Which was a bit scary.
And then he grabbed me by the arm, and I pulled away and said, I'm sorry, this conversation's over.
The following week, I saw him again. He just hops out of his car and just starts harassing me. Oh, it's this guy again, oh my God.
I've had people inquiring as to where I live and how my children are.
Drop the F-bombs, call us w***ers or b***ers.
You scum maggot.
A classic one is, get a real job.
Get a real job.
Don't know where that comes from, but apparently it's an insult.
He reached in and tried to grab the keys out of the ignition.
He shouted abuse at me all the way back to the car.
So this video created by Wellington City Council to highlight the increase in abuse that's been suffered by members of their team. And again, in correlation with Pink Shirt Day there. But we see these signs everywhere now. These signs about don't harass the staff. What is going on with people that we have to put up these signs nowadays? And especially when it's directed at those who are at the low end of the food chain. Is it really just a wider expression of people's frustration in life, maybe boiling over to the wrong people?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And again, I'm really glad we're talking about it out of the back of the story we just covered. And also, again, from a Christian perspective here on Rima and on trending. Well, you mentioned, Andrew, if government is the way it is in terms of following the money or, of course, the opinions, that is actually down to us, and we have to take some credit there. I imagine this is the same scenario to an extent.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I see these things as being downstream of culture. Let me put it another way. One of my objections to the way that sometimes we engage with the world, and I would love to get your thoughts on this one. Again, remember, you can text in 8168 with the first word Rima, or in the chat by going to rima.co.nz, look at the YouTube or Facebook Live links there, is if I consider the cultural impact of Christianity, I see it as having begun on a cultural level first, on a societal level, community level, and then working its way up to the point where now it was starting to affect politics. I feel like we spend an awful lot of time, awful lot of energy pointing at politics and trying to change things from the top down. So if we can get the right political power, the right people elected, right policies voted for, then we will get the society that we want. I just don't see that as being the way that it happened. And when you consider Christianity, people have talked about whether or not it's in decline or not in New Zealand. There's all sorts of discussions on this one, maybe not as widely ascribed to as it once was 20, 30, 50 years ago. Our ability to engage in our communities and meet the needs that are there starts to address the hurts in people that are otherwise addressed at civic servants, strangers in the street, waiters, bus drivers, you name it. So that's where I perhaps see the opportunity, and in some cases, maybe it's a bit of a wake-up call for how well we are engaging with the communities around us, because people are clearly hurting, and those hurts are not being addressed.
A point of prayer, I would absolutely say, Andrew, and I'd also say we are called as Christians to be a marked difference in the world, to be quite, when interacted with, there is something that clicks in people that goes, there's something noticeably different about you. And when, as you say, we lead politically first, that is completely missed.
Yeah.
It is political Christianity, and the politics is on top and the Christianity is below. And then it starts to form within the party or the voting system itself. Ground level politeness, even just asking for that.
Love your enemies, even. That notion ebbing away, we feel like the need to contend on a violent level. And let's be honest, we've all got that element within ourselves that wants to, react when we feel like we're being personally attacked or challenged. How do we do this with wisdom? How do we do this with grace? It is a supernatural thing. And as you mentioned, Josh, it's why we got to pray about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, amen.
Trending with Andrew Curtis.
And so to stem the bleeding on an otherwise difficult show, Josh, why don't we talk about the number 2 story in the country over the last week? And with a few moments we have left, Moana Pacifica versus the Blues.
I thought we were stemming the bleeding.
Well, I mean, you've got to address this thing so that it can be treated.
Okay. So the Blues lost to Moana Pacifica. Well done to Ari Savia and Moana. They have done incredibly well this season. Ari Savia is playing out of his mind, and I'm a Blues fan, and I'm just...
You doing all right? I mean, I know you're not, so really it's the wrong question to ask. But let's get a couple of quick thoughts then before we wrap up with Tana Umanga, the Moana Pacifica coach, and he's talking about the impact of Ari Savia after that big win over the Blues.
Sounds me sometimes. I don't know if anyone can get any better, but he keeps doing it, and I think it's just amazing what he puts himself through, how he prepares, and also how much it means to him. I think that's the kind of thing we talked about as well. How much does it mean to us? We can, as Adi talked about, we can talk about it, but what are you going to do about it? And
sports analysis interviews.
Okay, so if you're not watching the stream, and the reason I wanted to pick this up is because I think this is also a little bit indicative of Kiwi culture. Ari Savia is sitting right next to Tana Umanga as he delivers this, impassioned, this guy's amazing, he's so good, and he goes on. Like, Andrew, cut it short because we're running out of time. But, man, Ari looks uncomfortable. He's just like, Yep, arms folded, like, yep.
Just staring off into space.
Syndrome just kicking in.
Yeah, how would you want somebody to respond in a moment like that, though? Like, how pumped up do you want to be?
That's a good point. I can't say I do any different. If you're sitting next to him
being like, yep, he's right. Yeah. Just pointing at the coach. He's got it.
That's right,
this guy understands.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, tell him more about me. High five. All right. Look, it was your number 2 story in the country. In case you're wondering, your number 1 was about cricket. We just thought, well, we could only really have one story at the top. So we went with rugby instead. Hope that's okay. If not, stick around because we're going to, for the next few moments or so, discuss maybe a few more of these stories. We came in hot, or at least I did, on a couple of these ones today. Would love to get your thoughts on those, and we can go back and unpack some more of these as we discuss the top news stories from over the last week. But if you do have to dip out now, thank you so much for joining us, for being a part of Trending. It is the weekly news stories that Aotearoa was searching for, and that includes you. We're going to take a break next week because, of course, it's going to be the Rema support drive. And so we hope to hear from you for an entirely different reason next Wednesday. Until then, of course, have fun, be good. I'm Andrew Curtis, that's Trending, and you look fantastic today. Alrighty then. Good times, everybody. Let's get ourselves switched over, shall we? Josh is just adjusting his dials.
Yeah, my dial is being
suitably adjusted.
There we go, yeah.
Feeling good?
Am I still mic on?
I can hear you, yeah.
Oh, yeah, weird. Light's not working either.
Oh, I noticed that before too when I was talking to Mr. Urquhart. Nevertheless, well, that got spicy, didn't it?
Yes, welcome to the after show, by the way, of Trending. So we are going to stick around for a little while. The on-air radio portion of the show has concluded. Maybe you just shifted over from your radio to the stream because you want to be a part of the continuing conversation. Just going to go back, and this gives us a little bit more breathing room within the hour we have outside of that to talk about the stories we still have more to say on, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, let's wind the whole way back on this one. So, I mean, Eurovision again. I mean, is Australia still part of that, by the way?
No idea, to be honest.
Weren't they? Didn't they have something to do with it for a little while? And then
it was Australia.
There was this controversy. Let me just have a look. I can't see. Oh, I don't know if that's alphabetical though. I'm looking at a list of flags. Let me just play this now, and then I can see if I can spot a Australian flag in there somewhere, because that was the controversy, wasn't it? Sweden doesn't look like it.
So people have asked, will Australia be in Eurovision 2025?
Yeah.
And the answer that is being provided is Austria has won Eurovision 2025, just to make sure there's no mistake between Austria and
good.
Australia.
That's helpful. This is why we are not so at risk from AI taking our jobs as you might otherwise think. Anyway, let's move on from that then, because, I mean, gosh, that is a weird thing though. Hasn't Israel been at the center of protests there for the last, 10 years in a row?
Yeah. And it was interesting to now look back and go, man, we started with that story.
Yeah.
Such lightness, such fluff.
Such fluff.
It still had some very serious conversation within it in terms of the protest, but my goodness.
Yeah. Let me give you a shout out again, though, mate, for finding that, what was it, shockingly unchristian headline from BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
From BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed of all now, if you're not too familiar, by the way, we didn't labor the point too much, but BuzzFeed was very much a left-leaning clickbait news site.
I don't even know, again, that you can classify it as a news site. It was more of an entertainment
that's fair.
site. It was, again, there was a lot of...
Yeah, the polls you said were great. Like, what kind of coffee are you? What kind of chocolate bar are you?
Which Shrek character are you? Like, that. This is what they're known for, right?
Yeah.
It was... You're bored, you're scrolling on the internet at work, and you're doing a BuzzFeed quiz instead of actually,
It occurs to me, as I look at this, am I interpreting this the wrong way? As opposed to, say, BuzzFeed pearl clutching over JD Vance's unchristian behavior, is it more just them pointing out a hypocrisy?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that there was actually some, again, surprising validity and newsworthiness to a BuzzFeed article.
Sure.
I will say the amount of actual reporting was pretty sparse. If you go through and you look at the article itself,
right,
it's a lot of looking at particular people's tweets in response.
Don't you love how tweets became news, by the way?
Oh, man.
It's one of the signs.
And basically
that we're in the end times.
Yeah, the response being from a lot of people, how very unchristian.
Yeah, sure. It's weird, isn't it, man? Because people lament the lack of Christianity in New Zealand politics, and then you look at American politics and you just see how everything becomes a faith issue, but in a really perverse kind of way. Oh, man. I don't know which one I want more or less. I suppose it'd be better to have
somewhere in the middle.
Faith. Yeah, but...
That wonderful mythical middle we all try to walk.
Mythical middle. I mean, there's some actual wisdom in acknowledging that is a myth too, because people look back in the day and be like, "Oh, wasn't it great back in the old days?" And you kind of forget how divided the world was over so many different things. So, yeah, shockingly unchristian. Mind you, they've criticized Vance about that kind of stuff in the past as well, especially when he talked about a biblical imperative to love your family more than.
Yes, yeah, you've got a biblical requirement to be more focused on your immediate family and then your wider community and then your country before you then worry about any other country as well.
What do you think about that?
It's absurd.
You reckon?
Absolutely.
To what? To say that you have a commitment to the family first, or to which one?
To give it a hierarchy.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Go on then.
I just think there's an obvious biblical etiquette to love your neighbor, to love all, and to...
True.
To basically, I think what the hierarchy is doing And what JD Vance is hoping to do via setting this up is to play these things off at each other.
I see. That's interesting. When I heard it, this imperative to love your own family, let me put it this way. I know many a successful church leader whose family has deep sixed because they have prioritized the wider congregation over their own family.
Yep, fair. That is fair.
And even when it comes to, say, in Timothy, when they're talking about the requirements for bishops, it talks about somebody having their own house in order. Now, I might be drawing a long bow on this one, but the idea of having your family in order as a prerequisite for then wider public ministry,
right, yes,
does suggest to me, I don't know how you have your family in order if you're not, dare I say, prioritizing, maybe that's the wrong word to use, their well-being over the wider community first and foremost. I mean, I do feel like my primary responsibility would be to my own
absolutely.
wife and children.
I think, unfortunately, my perception is that is not what JD was calling for. And I'd also say the same is true to love all, as your family are included in all.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Good
Which
point.
may be a little bit of a cop-out kind of thing, but no, absolutely. To love others as you love yourself, even the Bible says love yourself. If often we even talk about this kind of dynamic, pastors, church leaders burning out themselves, exhausting themselves because they have not given any love to themselves.
True.
And the Bible says love others as you love yourself.
You know, it's funny, I remember years ago hearing a pastor speak on this topic of the love of God and how it sounds superficially like entry-level Christianity, perhaps. This is one of the basic things, Jesus loves the little children, and we're like, oh.
We turn off a little bit because we've heard it so many times
Oh, the
before.
love of God, yes, God loves you.
Yeah, I got it.
But living out the love of God is one heck of a thing. If you can nail that, well, you'd be God himself, wouldn't you? I mean, it is way more complex than we ever are prepared to acknowledge. And I think when you come butting heads against the challenges of the world and other people and yourself, how to balance those things, how to know, for example, as a parent, you use a good example there. Everybody knows that as a parent, you are giving more to the child than the child gives to you for the majority of their early life, at the very least. It will only really be maybe in your last 20 years-ish, then maybe the balance gets redressed.
Yeah.
But never completely.
Got a comment through via Felicity again, by the way. Thank you, Felicity.
Hey, Felicity.
Obviously, a full-time watcher, and we appreciate. She says, the Bible tells us to respect our political leaders, but she doesn't say but she says they make it difficult.
Amen. They certainly, I love the honesty of that. You're absolutely right. They make it difficult. They make it exasperating. Gosh, don't they?
But who doesn't?
Well, I mean, this is true.
Even people we really deeply love sometimes.
Well, I mean, before we talk about this idea of loving, I mean, we've got to love our political leaders as well. I suppose that's why I focus this on my immediate community as my way of addressing this, because I'm not likely to ever speak to any of them. Well, actually, that's probably not true. I might do, considering I interview these people before the elections. I might speak to them. We probably moved on to different topics by then. The point is this. My ability to influence them versus my ability to influence my immediate community is very different. And so the degree to which I'm engaged in my local community and what kind of a neighbor I am to those in my immediate proximity.
Vicinity, yeah.
Yeah, that makes much more of a big difference than, when we look at these guys and say, why isn't the government leading us better? That's the temptation I'm trying to avoid, because I don't find that helpful. What's the conclusion of that kind of debate? Why isn't the government doing better? Okay. Well, now what? Well, things would be great, but the government really has to, which is what? By extension means, well, I can't do anything.
Taking the problem out of your hands.
Exactly. When the answer is, oh, well, of course you can. Of course you can do something. You might not be able to change the world, but you can be nice to somebody. You can not bite the head off the waitress when she spills your coffee when they deliver it to you. You can, not be aggressive at the person who's maybe the teller at wherever you might be queued up because they're taking longer than you'd like them to.
Not getting mad at the moped going 30 in front of you on your way to work this morning.
Hypothetically, Josh?
Hypothetically.
Amazing how you draw these incredibly...
That scenario just popped into...
Amazing.
Super hypothetical, though.
Yeah, and then this whole Brooke Van Velden thing. I mean, it's not really a Brooke Van Velden thing at all, is it? I mean, the thing that was kind of a parallel to this too, we think about the lack of trust that people have in media these days. But this almost breathless... I've used the term pearl clutching a few times today, but maybe it's just my expression of the day. The way that news media have reported on Brooke Van Velden using that term in Parliament when it was used by one of their own compatriots in an article describing these people.
Yeah, because that's the key moment of focus, isn't it? But as we saw outlined by Stuff, and again, maybe a little bit of surprising praise, but we give it where it's due for sure.
I think so.
But surely that moment, say you remove the C word.
Sure.
It didn't happen.
Yep.
Do we believe that, which should have, all of the conversation that we saw unfold would have got so much press, would have been in our zeitgeist as much if that word, that one word, wasn't included.
I mean, imagine being able to write an article like that and nobody being upset about it. Like, I mean, I think it was pretty clearly derogatory of them, right? I don't see how you see that again. And talk about girl math as well. I mean, how bizarre to say that these guys have, sold their girls down women down the river, and then also resort to the kind of accusations or the kind of derogatory terms that you complain people direct towards other women in your criticism.
Moving to a very different topic, quite maybe with a bit of whiplash, but Hamish is trying to steal my job.
Oh, I love it.
But he's got in touch via the YouTube to say Australia, which has competed in Eurovision since 2015, surprisingly failed to qualify.
No.
With Gojo's innuendo-laden Milkshake Man in 2025.
There's a qualifying round?
Apparently.
There's a qualifying round.
See, again, Hamish is producing trending live better than I can. Well done, Hamish.
Well, I wouldn't say better than, but certainly, Hamish, we appreciate your efforts. That is great to know, though. Well, a qualifying round. Unbelievable.
What I don't know if that was either Hamish copying from Google or his own knowledge, but I love this, though, that final line. Gojo's innuendo-laden Milkshake Man. What a description.
Milkshake Man. His milkshake brings all the boys to the yard?
Potentially.
Yeah. What else we got? We didn't get to this one about Kubrick. This was just weird in general. It was number 12, Kubrick. Stanley Kubrick. I don't know how long he's been dead now.
Long past director.
Long past. Quite the auteur. Got some praise from Tom Cruise and how he convinced Kubrick to hire his then wife, Nicole Kidman.
Do you want me to? So I'll explain as I've figured out what happened.
Okay, go on.
It's very... I feel like if we had have had time for this story, we could have compared an element of it to others.
Ooh.
So Kubrick is the popular search term, right? Was number 12 over the week that was.
Yep.
This comes from Tom Cruise doing an interview with a magazine.
Yeah.
A private publication you have to have a subscription to.
Okay.
But other news outlets getting wind of it because Tom Cruise mentioned Nicole Kidman, who, of course, previously was in a relationship.
Yep.
He often does not do this. He makes no mention of her. And so it was surprising that not only did he mention her, but also give her quite a lot of praise because they start together in Kubrick's movie Eyes Wide Shut, I believe.
Yep.
And so basically the fact that Tom Cruise had mentioned Nicole Kidman, this was the entertainment scandalous news.
Right.
But Kubrick
was the term
that was leading to all of that.
So it wasn't Cruise, it wasn't Kidman, but Kubrick.
Yeah.
Go figure.
And that again, because I mean, we go back to Brooke Van Velden.
Yep.
The shit. Sometimes I don't know. I don't understand with the stories that we cover because they are from the Google search terms, but why it is that part of the story that is where people's interests lie.
Interesting. And also, too, Van Velden. Is that an easy name to spell?
No, not really, is it?
So maybe it's Google doing a little bit of the hard work for them and saying, did you mean, or showing you search results for?
Yes.
Fascinating. Pink Shirt Day we talked about. Oh, by the way, the weather was big. Wind warnings over the last week, thunderstorms, so on and so forth. So that had a lot of people hot and bothered.
Hard to talk about the weather post the weather happening.
Yeah, it's like, do you remember when it was windy? No, you kind of move on, don't you?
Yeah, well, or the wind moves you on.
Touche. That was number 4 in the country. We didn't get to talk about that too much. And then, Moana Pacifica versus the Blues. So those are your trending stories from over the last week. Great to hear from you guys in the chats and such as well. I'm kind of interested in watching the video on demand for this a little bit later on and revisiting some of these talking points. If you didn't know, these do get posted on our YouTube, and then they're even visible on our Facebook Live for, I want to say, at least a week or two.
Yep.
So feel free to check those out if there's ever parts of the discussion that you missed or other thoughts you want to share with us. Anything else, Mr. Beatty?
No, I just think wonderful to be back together for trending. I'm sad I missed last week.
Yeah, and sad we're not going to be here next week too. But we will have a support drive instead, which, if goes well, we'll have a trending again after that.
Yeah. If you want trending to stick around.
Specifically trending.
Yeah.
Make all your donations towards Rima Media, #trending.
Yeah.
Don't explain it.
Look, if you want trending to stick around, it's kind of part of it's a package deal.
You got to do it. So that's our lot for the day. Thanks again for being part of this post-show discussion. Always great to see you guys lingering in the fiending away in the chat.
Shout out to Hamish.
Shout out to Hamo. So we'll catch you in a fortnight. This has been fun, though. Thanks again. See you next time. Mwah.